Shennee Rutt, welcome to the LinkedIn Live with Jack Kelly. Good morning or good afternoon. I don't even know what time it is. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hey, so let's just jump right into it. You have recruiting experience, HR experience, resume writing experience. So this is perfect for the audience at hand who, trying to figure out what to do, whether they're finding a new job, want to kind of grow within their own organization or just navigate their career. So by you having like all three of these pieces, that helps out a lot.
True. I mean, I fell into human resources via a really cool job in retail and worked in some retail HR for a while. And then when I decided I didn't want to spend my nights and weekends and holidays with the rest of the universe, I to keep this HR thing going. Somebody suggested I walk into some agency recruiting. That's really where I got my hard knocks with recruiting. I walked in and they're like, here's a desk, here's a phone, start calling for job orders. So, I moved my way through some lateral great positions, did all kinds of life cycle hiring, everything from industrial to legal to professional to executive, you name it. Plus I had to interview anybody that walked in the door because we were sort of in a public space in a career center, if you will. So anybody that walked in, we all had our responsibilities and job orders that we needed to fill. So there was that too. And, just once I left agency recruiting, I moved into some generalist work with a healthcare facility that was very successful, had 14 locations. So I was basically human resources on the entire campus. And, enjoyed my time being everything HR, everything that walked in the door we needed, part of an executive hiring team with all of the leaders of the facility and reported to the administrator and the director of HR at the corporate office. So that was some great experience. And then before I launched my own company, which turns 10 today.
Oh my God. See, that's why I wanted to do it. This was a surprise. We forgot the cake, but we knew this was your 10-year anniversary, and we thought, what a time for Shennee to come out and talk about it.
Floral Virtual Solutions. The last stop on the recruiting train was Amazon, so that was really fun. So yeah, so I just decided to take all my collective experience and do what I love the most and launch my company, and here we are 10 years later.
That makes a lot of sense. So, you had experience HR, so you know how that works. And then you're a recruiter, starting from nothing, like you said, and just cold calling. So you have a feel for that. Now you could take, those talents and say, hey, let me help people who are looking for jobs and put together resumes and give them advice.
I actually saw so many bad resumes over the years in recruiting that, I was the only recruiter, I think, that stayed late and came in early and fixed up everybody's resume. This is back in the day when you had to put a piece of tape over the person's name and the address and all that, so other people couldn't call them for jobs. And I just had to pull up Word and make a resume look, 100% better. So that was just something I did just out of my own, because I really wanted to have more success with filling my job orders, with my best qualified person that I interviewed. So I just always loved the resume writing. I wrote how many cover letters over the years. Cover letters are coming back though. I can't believe how many I've written.
So with the resumes, well, you know what? Let me talk about the cover letter first, because I thought that people weren't using cover letters anymore, because I can't remember the last time I really saw one, but I do hear from a lot of people that, yeah, it's there. Like what happened? What made the resurgence?
I have no idea. I wish it would stop though, because if you have a good resume and you have a solid LinkedIn profile, it just seems like an extra piece layer in the process that I would have thought would have fallen by the wayside. But truth be told, a lot of my clients in mid to senior level executive roles they are applying for positions online, obviously, like most people do today. And they are calling me and saying, well, this is before I offered it as a component in my career fundamentals package that I offer. They would say, oh my gosh, I've got the LinkedIn, I've got the resume, but now I need a cover letter. They won't let me get, until I upload a cover letter, they won't let me fully apply. So I don't
Oh,
know.
is that what it is? That's a lot of these like Workday ATS systems are calling for it. So now, whether
Right.
they like it or not, they create that trend that you
So
have to
when they
do.
go online, even
Huh.
on LinkedIn, it says apply online or apply here, they go to XYZ
Mhm.
company and they say, it says talent acquisition position, apply now. That's where they're getting hung up. They're applying directly on the company portal and it's saying we need a cover letter from you.
Mm. But
So
I think, if I was sending out a resume, I would want to do a cover letter for myself because I think that's a great way to market yourself. Resume, and you're the expert. I'm not. I haven't even, I haven't written a resume in like, I can't even remember. But with a cover letter, you can really sell yourself, why someone should hire you. You don't have to have that rigid format of a resume. You can really sell yourself, market yourself, talk, give some insights that make them say, oh, wow, I get Jack as a human being, now I'm really interested.
yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on with that trend. It does wax and wane, but it's really on the uptick lately. And
Have you used AI at all?
I've dabbled with it a little bit. I have
Yeah.
really great wordsmithing skills, and I'm pretty confident in my writing. But I play around with it a little bit just to see what it'll give me back. But I just create a solid cover letter template for my clients, and I have them send me obviously a job posting that they're interested in applying for, because when we're at the conclusion of our working together, they're pretty much on their way and they're job searching, obviously. And so I'll create the cover letter template for that position, and then they'll be able to customize it from then, from that day forward. But for anything else, but yeah, the cover letters are still being required.
Now, Shady, when people come to you, is there any type? Is it that they're in between jobs? Is it that, they like their job, but they feel the market is good and want to find a better job? Any themes that you notice?
Well, interestingly enough, I just had a client that I worked with, Pennsylvania based, southern end of Pennsylvania. She has worked for a very well-known bank for over 10 years and moved her way up quite nicely in positions. And she just was becoming very, I guess, just checked out from the work she's
Yeah.
doing. Wanted me to approach a little bit of a different pivot, and we're doing some more work with compliance, and she just wanted to level up. She felt like there was just no place to go in the branch or the company. And so we worked together to reposition her a little bit, and she actually was brave enough to go to her boss and say, hey, can we have a conversation? I've been with you a long time, and there's got to be something internal that I can look into. So she's in the process of hopefully finding a great position to stay within the company, because she really likes the company. So it's kind of a great story. But most people who come to me are looking to pivot or reposition or just level up.
Mhm.
They're looking for the grass is a green. They're looking for the greener grass.
I'm glad you brought up that story about the person working at the bank, because most often, I hear when people are looking for a new job, they're not thinking internally. But to me, I think that's
Yeah.
a mistake, because I would suggest to folks before they leave, maybe check with your boss and managers and senior executives to see, hey, what else can I do here? And I think by not doing that, you're selling yourself short, because it could be, let's say that person that you're referring to, right? Let's just call her Jane. Jane could have easily left, but by her just asking her boss, all of a sudden it opens up a whole other channel. And it doesn't mean a year from now, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, she could go somewhere else. but she can make that pivot. And I think if someone wants to make a pivot, think about it. It's easier if you do it with your company because they know you know them. It's not so awkward to do it from scratch. So if you make some mistakes, they get it, because they know you're a good worker to begin with. So that's, I think, an underrated thing that we don't talk about enough. That just, try internally first, figure out what you could do and how you can move laterally. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm hopeful this will work out for her because she is a hometown girl and her family is here. So she's not willing to, she doesn't wish to relocate and leave the area. She's very grounded with the culture and the town, and she's young still, so she's looking just for a greater challenge. And I commend her for having the courage to go to her boss and say, hey, is there something else I can do here?
It does take a lot of courage. You're right, because you run the risk. Let's say I'm going to you, right? You're my boss, and I'm asking you. I got to worry a little bit, like, am I playing my hand? And is Shennee going to think I'm leaving? And then it's really uncomfortable. So it is a little risky. And I guess, so how would you tell her to say it to smooth it out? Like for someone who's doing that, did you kind of advise her, here's what to say so they don't get freaked out? Like, oh, if I don't get this internal promotion, I'm quitting, or it just goes downhill.
I think they just had a very thoughtful conversation and it resulted in more positive than not. So, I think they're going to work with her. So
Great. So while on a positive, any other people who came to you that you had some positive, conclusions to helping out your client?
You mean some any of my
this sounds like a cool thing. Like, hey, you're help her get. Hopefully, she'll get that job. But any other people recently come to you and they're just feeling miserable and unhappy, and all of a sudden they get a great new job?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really proud of my track record, and I really get people moving in the right direction and on their way. And I think with our discovery call that we have, we really deep dive and we figure out, okay, what is it that you've been doing now, and what is it that you don't want to do anymore, and where do you want to go from here? So it's very productive, and it actually gives them a lot of confidence to think more for themselves and, brainstorm a little and make a list of things that, they want to do, and opens up their mind a little bit more to think beyond the job they're doing now.
Is that common where you'll sit down with somebody, like a new client, and then they're not really sure what they want to do, but they know they want to do something different, and you have to kind of tease out of them, what will make you happy, what you want? Is that a typical kind of conversation that a career advisor would have with a person?
Yeah. Folks who work in education, who, doesn't necessarily want to be a principal of schools anymore. Maybe he wants to level up to be a superintendent of schools, or, we're going to try to position him to a senior executive, more, higher role out of the school system, maybe in a consulting capacity. So yeah, people come to me with, okay, I want to do something different, or I just need my resume is old and dated and it needs refreshed and updated, but LinkedIn is really front and center and very important too. So that's a passion of mine, making sure that folks are properly leveraged on LinkedIn.
So when you say properly leveraged on LinkedIn, what do you advise people to do? Is this to get noticed to find a job, or?
Well, what I see most of the time when I work on clients' LinkedIn profiles is they're very they're very incomplete, really.
Right.
They have about 70% of it done, and they're non-existent. Nobody knows who they are because they haven't completed the entire profile correctly because A, they don't know, B, they never had anybody teach them, or C, they just completely don't understand the platform. I mean, you and I both know that in order for social media to be successful, you have to engage, you have to be successful, you have to network with the right people, and you have to cultivate really who you want to be connected to and how those people are possibly going to help you in the future. And I don't know if it's people just don't want to spend the time, but the time is now, really, because otherwise you will just not be existent. Nobody will know who you are.
So let's break it down. So for the people watching it now, but then also when we replay it and put it out again. So the first step you're talking about is the LinkedIn profile. And what you're saying is that oftentimes you look at maybe a client of yours or just in general, very sparse, right? They don't have everything there. And I concur with you on that, because as a recruiter, the key is, and you're a recruiter too, so is that you just want to find out, like, you don't want to study that for half an hour. You want to just go to that profile and know they do A, B, C. You're like, perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Boom. I'm happy. Instead of trying to figure out, like, what do you do? I'm not sure. I think you do some of it. I'm not clear. And then you just have a negative feel towards that person. So even if you want to help them later on, that first contact isn't very pleasant. It's like, wow, why didn't you put the time and effort into it? Now, do they ever say that? Like when you say to them, hey, like, your profile is like bare naked, like, what's up? Why aren't you doing something?
Well, we have once we're complete with the way that my process works is we start with the discovery call, we get a plan in place, and then we do the resume, and then we go to LinkedIn, and then we wrap up at the end and get them the cover letter they need, or the proper letter documentation that they're looking for. And but when we have a separate conversation about LinkedIn, and most people just don't know what to do with it. And I think that's why their profiles are struggling, because I still see people today that don't have a profile picture. They don't have a banner photo. So.
Do you think it's because a lot of people, I feel, they think they're going to only go to LinkedIn when they need a job or something of that nature. So if they're not looking for a job, they just don't bother. And then they got to all of a sudden play catch up when they feel the need to do it. So like, yeah, you'll have that very bare bones. So it's almost like passive aggressive. They'll just put it on there, bare bones. But then when they need it, all of a sudden they go into overdrive.
I don't really know. I just I'm passionate about it, and I really think that it is a huge component in being successful with whatever career and field you're in, to leverage your industry, leverage yourself. Personal branding is so important. Who are you? What do you do? A strong, bold headline. A very, very, first person interpreted about section, so I can get a little sense of personality, who you are. I think what still people do is they copy and paste all of their, either the job description of what they did for so long, or they just copy and paste their resume, and you just, that's just not the right approach.
So the steps are this. So number one, you have to really pay attention to your LinkedIn profile. Have a picture, have a good picture, not like, I don't know if let's talk about this for a second. Do you see this? This drives you crazy. You have the picture of the guy with his like arm around his girlfriend or something like that, which is always so weird and creepy. It's almost like, hey, I actually have a girlfriend, so I'm normal. Or someone who has like a logo of a sports team. It's like, why do you have a logo of a sports team instead of yourself? Or maybe a picture of their boat or car. It's so bizarre, right?
That's for Facebook, and that's for, well, it's not Twitter anymore, it's X.
Yeah. So
But
that's like a weird vibe, right? That's like a weird flex when you do that. I don't know why, or they think it's cool, or no one just advised them, like, no, that's not like helping your brand. So like you have to have a clean professional brand. Cause I would imagine most people who are on LinkedIn, for the most part, are white collar professionals. Not everybody, of course, but most. So you want to have like a clean, sharp picture, right? You want to have a good banner. You want to have a good, what were you saying? Like, what do you call that? Where it's the summary, like a little bit about yourself.
the about section.
Okay. So you
Mhm.
have a good tight there. And then you started talking about what to do once you're on the site, like branding yourself and marketing yourself. Did you have some suggestions for people who feel like, hey, I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for a promotion, but no one seems to notice me? Like, what do I do? Like, how do I get attention?
Well, so once you have a fully optimized profile, uh, you're ready to go. You need to know what to do. And what I find when I'm going through revamping or just just completely creating a brand new profile for clients is in their settings, they have a lot of those settings on privacies and networking reach either turned off or um, unmute, or privacy is locked down to the max. And
Right.
I can understand that being somewhat important to people in some really higher position roles, executive roles. um but you need to open up all of that. If you want to be a proper networker, you've got to open up all those parameters. And it's like letting the sun shine in a window.
Well,
you
can
know
you help me out? Because I'm not sure of this myself. When you say the privacy, because I believe I have everything open to the public. Is there something you click on to say I want to be private or public?
you have the LinkedIn user, of course, has full
Yeah.
control over what people see when they post and who they engage with. And um the settings that are probably the more important is status updates, you know status updates, engaging in other what other folks are doing, and finding your tribe, if you will, finding your league of people. And until you open up those parameters a little bit wider, people aren't going to know who you are or what you do. So once that's open a little bit wider, they say, oh, I get it now. LinkedIn is really a cool
Hmm.
place. Like,
So how do you do
people
that,
finding
Shady?
me now.
So how do you do that, Shady? So let's take the example of that woman who's at a bank, right? And maybe she wants to find a job in another bank within a location. What what would you suggest her to do when she gets on LinkedIn to get noticed by other banks who might be attracted to her background?
um I would probably follow some competitors of hers.
Okay.
And um
Competitors meaning look at like
competitor
maybe have like a defined
like
group of
she
other
wanted to stay
companies.
in finance, and she was at ABC Bank and wanted to go
Right.
to Dominion or something.
Okay.
She would, I would say on your off time, do some internet research and find out maybe who the recruiting manager is, who the hiring manager is, etc. And maybe reach out to them and send them an email or a request to connect and have a private conversation. You can do things on the confidential and on the down low safely on LinkedIn. But your privacy has to be a little, has to be just right. So, but for job seekers, they people who really want to be found on LinkedIn and are actively looking for work, you really need to open up those parameters pretty wide and tell people, put the open to work banner on, and tell people what you really need to know. I saw so many this morning on my timeline about people who are really struggling, and just I just need one last chance. And it's like a real plea for help. And so it's happening in real time.
So let's take a couple of things. Let's to follow up on your thread here. So person should say, okay, I'm looking for another role. Let me target, make up a number, 5 different companies I would love to work for. I
I like
respect
5.
them.
That's good.
5, okay, we'll go 5. So 5, right? And then you go after them. And then look for an internal talent acquisition person, an internal recruiter, an HR person, maybe even try to find who looks like they would be a hiring manager. And then send them a note of like a LinkedIn message or pay up for an email and send them something saying, hey, I respect this company. I've always admired it. I see that you have a role that's fitting, or even if there's not a role, hey, I didn't see any roles, but I would love to work here. What can we do? Could we have a coffee? Like, is that something you would suggest for people to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And be as organic and natural as possible. Just say, I'm hearing I've been a fan of yours for years. I've used all your products. Your company is second to none. I found a position that I really feel I could bring some value to. Who would you recommend I, get in touch with and start there, ask and start somewhere.
And then you were also talking about doing it on the down low. So I'd imagine sometimes you're a little nervous. You don't want your boss finding out, your nosy, busybody coworkers finding out. So you want to do it stealthily. So how do you do it that way, Shady?
Well, very carefully. I
Okay.
mean, most people, I don't really know. Years ago, we always encourage people to not necessarily be connected to their boss on social media, because that's just, it can be a little treacherous depending on what you do in your off time, etc. But I certainly would be careful, and be discreet. And there's definitely ways to search on each LinkedIn user is the owner of their own profile, so take control of it.
Can you do it? 2 things, couple things. Can you block your boss, just so that he or she can't see what you're doing?
I
And
do
then
believe
also,
setting where you can do that. I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but you'd have to go into their profile, and then there's like the 3 dots at the top of their profile. I think you can actually, I forget, I haven't looked into that lately, but
what about also going incognito so that you could search, but you're not?
dark mode.
Yeah, that might be a way, right? Where you could send messages and you don't have to worry. I think, right? No one else would see it because you're incognito unless it goes to the
I'm sure
intended.
that there's a way to do that. I think that might only be a premium option, though, to leverage that fully, to be completely incognito or do private viewing or something like that. But search.
So what's your take on this? Because I would suggest to people, if you're, want to advance your career or you want to get a new job, I would go and shell out the money for all the extras, all the premium features. So, because once you're doing it, the more tools you have at your disposal is going to help. And then if you could get a new job that's going to pay you like, 10, 20% more. All right. So whatever you spend, $500, I don't know, $1,000, it's probably going to pay for itself and then some. What do you think? And I'm not a shill for the, LinkedIn. I don't get paid by them to do it. I just look at it dollars and cents, in a return on the investment of time.
I see both sides of the story. I mean, the regular, not premium version of LinkedIn works really well for people. Most people, think it's a little on the expensive side still. And so if they are recruiting at a company like Amazon or something, it would be, most of those large companies will give their employees, premium status so they can, leverage the maximum on their, that portal, if that's what they use a lot for their job orders to fill and find people, etc. it's just a personal preference.
What did you talked about the open to work banner? What's your take on that? Are you pro that green banner or anti that banner, agnostic? What do you think people should do?
Like I said, I think it's a personal preference. I've seen positives and negatives with both.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen lately, I've seen more positives.
Mhm.
So
Positives in what way? Like,
that, wow, I put my open to banner work on,
mhm.
and a month later I've got a great, I'm accepting a great job. I'm seeing a lot more of that, those kinds of posts lately versus, um, it works for some people and it doesn't for others. Um, so what I tell people is, try it for a month and see what happens. And if you get any, great leads and your LinkedIn is percolating a little bit more, and you're finding some more, you're getting some traction on your job search. If you're struggling there, then just remove it for a week or two or three and see what happens. I mean, before that was even available, nobody had that as an
Right.
option,
Do,
so
do you coach people to, because this is a pet peeve of mine with the open to work banner, is that oftentimes I'll look at an open to work and it'll be something to the effect, and I'm going to exaggerate. It's going to be, oh, layoff, help me, I lost my job. And then I look at the profile and I can't figure out what job they lost, what they're looking to do next. And then I get irritated because, like, wait, if you want me to help me to help you, like, make it really super clear. Okay, I lost my job working at Morgan Stanley doing accounting for England, whatever it may be, right? It's like, oh, okay, so you're looking, and now I'm looking to do accounting, but I'm back here in the US, so I'm looking to do accounting here in New York. Okay, all right, now I get it. So if I'm a recruiter and I focus on accounting, I'm like, perfect. Do you notice that too? Do you advise, like, your candidates, your clients, hey, be really specific if you put on that banner so people know what you're looking to do so they can actually help you?
well, if you find yourself in the open to work banner situation, I think the first thing you should do is find somebody to help you with overhauling your LinkedIn profile and getting you as up to date and as current as possible, because I think that's probably what lies in your pet peeve, is that it's outdated, it's not current. And if you have to search and search and search, like, who is this person and where
Right?
did, right? Probably haven't touched their LinkedIn profile in years.
Yeah, because if you want someone to help, you want
They
to
didn't think they
make
needed
it
it,
easy for them to help you. You're not hard.
right?
So if we could circle back for a moment for resumes, because this is of what your 10th year in business, which is amazing. The data shows that most firms fail like within 1 year, if not 3 years. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked at statistics for businesses, particularly small businesses. Oh my God, to last 10 years, it's like ridiculous. It's so rare. It's so rare. It's amazing. So that's a huge accomplishment. That's awesome. And so
I'm
10
really,
years. So
and
let's say
yeah,
10 years of seeing resumes. All right, all right. You have to have seen some doozies. Like, are there some stuff that you could? I'll share some, like, what I've seen from a recruiter. Right, like, as a recruiter, as an HR person, as now a resume writer. Like, what are some of the, and no names? I don't want to embarrass anybody, but, like, have you seen stuff that you like? Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. What do you think?
well, what takes the cake, I think, on the one that was the craziest that I got was
Yeah.
a 25-page resume.
Wait, how many?
25.
20. Wait, how? What did the person do for 20? Like, even Elon Musk doesn't have like a 25-page resume. Like, what are they doing?
They were multi-global and they worked all over the world, and they just did not want to leave one one little detail.
So like everything they've ever done in like 30 years, they put on their resume. It's like a book. And you're not
So,
even talking about a CV, right? Where, and I'm embarrassed to say,
no,
I
no.
only learned like, I think it was with
Just
Hannah Morgan,
IT,
that I didn't know like CVs were different. Like it's much longer, like a curriculum vitae. I thought they were the same thing as a resume. So it's not even that. You're talking about just a resume, 25 pages long. So how did you straight face tell this person like you're nuts?
I said, this is going to be a lot of work. And I said, first of all, I just said 25 pages. I've never seen that in my life.
Did they fight you on it? Like thinking you're crazy, try to gaslight you? It was like, what are you talking about? How dare you, Shennee?
Hired me to help them, so they were going to listen to my best advice. And
Yeah.
I said, I have to tell you, we're going to get this down to 2 to 3 pages.
Did that person like have a heart attack? Like, I can't do 2.
Yeah, there was some silence at the other end of the phone. I told him that for a second. But then I said, it's all going to be all right.
Yeah.
But we even did his LinkedIn too.
How many? Well, see, LinkedIn, you can only do so much. So there you're trapped. You can't make it 25 pages on LinkedIn. So a 25-page resume. What else have you seen that you like cringe? This is like crazy.
Like 35 bullet points on what you can do on your core competencies. Oh my gosh, what else can I think of here?
Can I throw a few out while you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. No particular. One is this, where this drives me crazy. You look at, let's say, the resume, and this goes for LinkedIn too, where I view it as real estate, right? It's prime real estate, your resume, and you want to get, your position in a good spot. So let's say someone has a job, their current job, then they'll have like 2 lines of their current job. And then for their prior job and other jobs, they'll have like this much, and it's not even relevant anymore. It's like, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. You want to put all the good stuff up front. Have you seen, and I can't tell you how many resumes like that I'll see all the time.
I see a lot of redundancy in job, ABC job. And then you get to the next page and it almost looks identical to what they did at the previous jobs. Too much redundancy.
Copy paste almost.
Copy paste. And what's the other thing I was going to say? Redundancy and no quantifiable metrics.
That's a good point. When you say that, because like I hear that, what does that mean for people? Like when you say quantifiable metrics, well, what should people do?
So, for instance, if you are a software executive, how many millions of dollars did your team generate for the company in Q1 through 4 in a yearly situation? Did you save the company any money with regards to uncovering, benefits from people that have been termed, is still being paid out? I had a situation where that was a measurable metric for one of my HR people, and I think it was North Carolina. He uncovered, $500,000 that was being paid out, but because people weren't properly termed, they weren't termed in the system, so they were still getting health benefits, and he had to get on to, he had to do an investigation and get some money retracted, but he was successful doing that. So yeah, you definitely want to highlight how you save the company money, how many people you hired and managed, how many millions of dollars you sold, whether it was diamonds or bank accounts, whatever it is. So those are really important. What did you do? How did you bring value to?
That's really smart. That makes a lot of sense. So this way, by putting the statistics, the numbers, you could show, hey, I came here, let's say I'm a salesperson. I brought sales from $100,000 to $1 million within, the year.
6 months
then,
time.
yeah. So, yeah, but what happens for this? I'll give you an example. I recruit for predominantly compliance people, and those are kind of like the police officers of Wall Street. So they're not revenue generating, and oftentimes they're derided as like revenue, like standing in the way of revenue. So it's hard for them to have like metrics because they're not bringing in money, they're playing defense. What do you
Right.
do for those kind of people who can't give like numbers and look at, I beat quota? How can they do this, do kind of what like the salespeople kind of like they could just to give some numbers to make it look like you did something positive?
Well, I would definitely, change the language a little bit, and there's a way you can probably uh, word that in such a way of worked on, project X and uncovered or retrieved or recovered, X millions of dollars and, oversight or I don't know, money
But that's a good
laundering.
idea. Actually, money line is a good part. It's like, it could be like, hey, by, reviewing with my team, KY, know your customer and sanctions, we were able to ensure that, hundreds of millions of dollars didn't get in here illegally, which would have ended up with billions of dollars in fines for the company. So even though it's theoretical, but at least you can make it sound like, oh, okay, this person is really on it. This person really knows their stuff.
Definitely a way to word that language without
Yeah,
being, too vague, but
right.
also not violate any privacy, things. So
See, here's another thing with resumes. I'm curious, do you notice a proliferation? There's so many online courses and so many courses with like top Ivy League schools that they put it on the resume on LinkedIn, but some of them, not all of them, put it so that you're not really sure. Did they go to Harvard or this was just a certificate or I'm confused. Have you noticed that where like, how do you feel about that? Should just take it off or you'd be very super clear?
well, I saw this during COVID, a lot where folks were just craving to be certified or
Right,
educated or just do something because nobody could leave home, it was everything was remote.
right.
And so what I always encourage people is certainly to be honest and ethical. And if you did take a certification on LinkedIn, or if you took a certification at Yale online or Harvard online, or they have these courses that are, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks or something. If you completed it, make sure that that's noted on your LinkedIn profile for sure as, most current continuing education. But also there's a place on LinkedIn for sure that I know where you can say some coursework completed.
Mm.
And so it doesn't mean you graduated, but you at least it shows an employer, perhaps to a prospective employer, that you're perhaps in process. Like folks who are in the process of studying before they take their SHRM certification, a lot of times it'll say SHRM certification training in progress, estimated, test date,
Mhm.
May 2024 or something, so at least they see that you're working towards something. I think that that's a much more ethical way to go than,
Yeah.
just say, definitely add some continuing education, but be honest about it.
Let me give from when you were a recruiter, check this out. So I had this candidate, great offer. I want to say it's like maybe 250, something like that. And on the resume, they didn't have it, but on their LinkedIn profile, it made it look like they had a degree from a top university.
Mm.
And they came back to me and said, Jack, we're going to withdraw the offer because we think this candidate was really misleading because it made it look like they did graduate and they didn't. It was just this kind of whatever accreditation. This was before the proliferation. This was before the pandemic where it became so common, where it's a little less common. So it's one of those things that, I think people have to be careful with their resume because on one hand, you want to show off, hey, I did all this hard work to get a, this certificate from such and such university, and I worked really hard for it, or not to feel like you're tricking somebody, and then they find it 3 months later, and then they call you into HR and say, hey, wait a minute, you really kind of misled us with this. We thought you knew this thing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, just be transparent, be honest, because it'll save a lot of trouble in the long run.
Do you find this out, Shady, that on the other side of the equation is that I'll find resumes where they just leave out important stuff. So let's say in the securities industry, usually you need licenses to do certain things, like say the Series 7 license or the 24 or what have you.
Right.
And it takes time and effort and money to get these licenses. And they don't have it on. And that's the difference, because sometimes, a lot of times companies will specifically call for those licenses. And then I scratch my head, like, if I speak to a candidate, why didn't you put it on there? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I didn't think about it. So do you notice that on resumes too, where you scratch your head, like, wait a minute, you have this really great thing you did, but you didn't bother putting it on? Is that another thing you find out from people?
Yeah, I do. Obviously your certifications are super important, and there's a special place for them to go on LinkedIn too, certifications, accreditations, and that's all very, very important. So unfortunately, that sounds like a major oversight on the job seeker, because
Yeah.
why in the world would he not put that on his resume if he is applying for a position that required Title 1, 2, 3 certification, or what have you?
You also see this with resumes where instead of maybe putting their best foot forward, like the first bullet point, second, like really did amazing stuff. It's a kind of no order. It's almost like oh, I did this, write it out there. Oh, I did this, write it out there. And there's no pattern. There's no it's just like a mishmash. Do you know what I mean? Do you see that where it's like, wait, you're not telling your story right?
Right. So a lot of times when I see a first draft of a resume that's poorly executed, whether it was on somebody else's part that wrote it, or probably the job seeker who tried to do just a copy and paste, is it just doesn't tell me who you are. And some of them are poorly written in the way that they still say seeking job of XYZ, and that's definitely not what you want. So you want to highlight your greatest expertise and be the preferred candidate.
And when you do that, do you put your best thing first and then second best, third best? How, what's the order, when you put in a resume, do you put hey, here's the awesomest thing I've done, second awesomest thing, third? Is that how it goes?
Well, you certainly would want to highlight, what industry you're in right out the gate, industrious executive, digital content media strategist with 25 plus years experience in the field. Tell us who you are, where you've been, what you're doing, and then come out and really hit hard with the top 3 things that you can do. And I call those pain points. Solve the pain points of somebody that's looking for this. So you really just want to come out and say, I'm the preferred candidate. If it's a financial company, saved worked on global contracts and saved and raised $500,000 in capital in 90 days when we were in a deficit before, and maybe this from deficit to $500,000 in capital or whatever. But you've really got to come out with some metrics and some to your own horn a little bit, because otherwise you're going to just sound very generic.
That's good. That's really good advice. Now, let me ask you one last question, right? So how do you feel about this? I always see that maybe more like younger millennials and Gen Zs with resumes, they want to put on everything, graphs, charts, pictures, whatever. Like it's like almost they're throwing everything on it. It's like a pizza where you want everything on it. You're not just to have like sausage and peppers. It's like everything on it. What's your take on it? Is that something that should be done, not be done? It depends on the industry. If you're a creative industry,
I see a lot of that only in the creative industry. If you're going to be applying for an intern at MTV or Spotify in New York City or something, that's where we can get a little bit more creative and fun with your resume. But if you're just talking about, a professional, mid to senior level role, I would really just refrain from a lot of no graphics. I do some light color shading with my resumes, but they're very clean and professional. But definitely not a photo unless I think that's more typical with CVs overseas, like in Europe. That's a different approach. But generally, American resumes typically don't have a photo. But yeah, keep it clean and less is more. Because again, a hiring manager has 5 to 7 seconds that they're going to glance at your resume. And if they're distracted by all these graphs and photos and color, then they're just gonna, discard it and say, I can't deal with this.
Does that also hurt when it goes through like ATS systems, that if you have all these crazy stuff on there?
I understand, it really does.
Yeah.
It will reject candidates right away because the ATS doesn't understand all the, it sees it as an unqualified or a candidate that's, I don't know, it's just not a good thing to do. So, but that's what I'm told, that most of the ATSs will reject anything that clutters up a resume beyond the basics. So graphics and
this is great. This is great advice, and it's much needed advice. I think it seems, I'm curious your take. It does seem things are getting a little better. I see more jobs online, more people saying that they're getting jobs, less layoff announcements that we saw for like months and months. So
the layoff announcements have kind of settled down,
but people still need this advice and help. And all right, I lied. One last question. So 10 years, after 10 years, being a successful businesswoman, right? And was there anything I didn't ask you that you feel you'd like to share, whether it's resumes, whether it's from HR, whether it's recruiting, any last piece of advice that maybe we didn't talk about?
I would just say, if you are struggling with any area of your job search, whether it be resumes or interviewing or coaching, just find somebody that you can connect with, whether it's me or anyone else, and reach out to them and, I guess get out of your own way a little bit, and admit that you may need some guidance in that area, because a lot of people, it is very, very hard for an individual like myself. I couldn't even write my own resume. I had somebody else do it. It's just a very, very unique type of work. And in order for a very successful resume and LinkedIn profile, you really need somebody else's perspective to see things that you didn't see and bring out the best in you.
That makes a lot of sense. I really love that advice, because, you can't have all the answers yourself. You need a coach, you need a sponsor, you need a mentor, you need someone, a trusted advisor, so that could help you. Because you see that you do your taxes, you get an accountant, you have a legal issue, you get a lawyer.
I would never dream of doing my own taxes. I have an accountant,
Right.
That's a great analogy,
Even the best sports stars have their own coaches who have not only like the, literal coaches on the field, but, their own coaches on the side, mental coaches, helping them with their mindset, helping with their game. So yeah, I think that's a really great piece to add. So thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations again,
Thank you
in
very
10 years. That's awesome. And I think you're going to help a lot of people with your advice.
Well, I certainly hope so, one client at a time, so.
Excellent. Well,
Thanks
hey,
so
wait,
much.
how can people find you? Where can they,
Laurel Virtual Consulting at gmail.com, LinkedIn.com, Shennee Rutt. And then I'm, on social, Facebook, LinkedIn, and X.
excellent. But
I just can't.
it's just weird saying that, isn't it? I'd
Right.
still say Twitter. I don't, it's hard to.
But no, you can find me, most of my clients, find me via LinkedIn, and I'm very responsive with turnaround time. And, we just, get you on your way and find that great job you're looking for.
Fantastic. Excellent. Well, thank you once again, Shennee. This is awesome. I'm glad you were able to give such great advice, and congrats one more time, 10 years. That's awesome.
Bye.
Well, thanks. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. It was fun. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.